Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we'll be continuing with customizing Cleo Denial into Jennifer from Jennifer's body. We started off with this look in my previous video, so if you haven't seen that, make sure to check that out. And now we are doing this prom look that I have done in the past that I'll show here, but I wanted to do something a little bit more. I thought, why not make her monster mouth? So we're just starting off prepping the doll the same way we prepped Jennifer in the last video, by cutting off all her hair. After softening the head, I can remove it and use tweezers to get the hair plugs out. Since this doll already had a middle part, the holes were already pretty close and they were pretty big, and I knew that it would probably split. So I just went in and added a few stitches just to make sure that it was okay. After that, I painted the scalp black, and then I used Nightmare from Shimmerlocks for her hair and rerooted her hair just like how we did with the previous Jennifer. After that, I could mask off the hair, and I'm just taking an X-Acto knife to cut open the mouth. At first, I was going to use just hot glue to keep the mouth open. I didn't really expect that to work, and it didn't, so I used a piece of wire to kind of prop the mouth open, and then I'm just using hot glue to seal that in place. Once that's completely dry, I can go in with a pass of epoxy sculpt part A and B. I kind of shoved it in the mouth a little bit, and this took a couple days to just build layer by layer. So I started off with shoving some clay in the mouth to try to make it so it wasn't just a big hole. Well, we want it to be a hole, but not like directly into the head, and just, yeah. And then I'm just kind of starting to sculpt around the mouth and make it a little less harsh. Once that's completely dry, I went in with another pass and again tried to get it inside the mouth and try to create that back so later we can sculpt the tongue and gums and without it just seeping into her head. I can also continue to build up the mouth and kind of start to sculpt the lips, but mainly just getting the shape and smoothing everything out. At this time, I took a little bit of epoxy sculpt and I rolled it into a long little worm, and then I went in with my X-Acto knife and just cut it into little tiny pieces for teeth. I let these teeth sit overnight so they're cured the next day. I went ahead and sculpted the tongue and kind of hid the wire with the tongue and the roof of the mouth. I'm taking another worm to sculpt the gums. Since this clay will be soft, it'll also be where I can stab in those teeth. So I'm just carefully putting in each tooth. I had to do this off camera. It was pretty hard, and I just went really slow and went tooth by tooth. And I added a little bit of glue around the gums just in case. Once that was completely cured, I went in with my nail drill and I just kind of helped blend the mouth into the skin. I also sculpted a little bit more of the chin so it looked like her mouth really was opening. Once I'm done with my nail drill, I can go in with a smaller grit and sand that even more smooth. This buffer has a bigger grit on one side and a smaller grit on the other, so I'm using the bigger grit first and then using the smaller one to smooth everything out. After that, I can wash off the face and go in with acetone to remove the face. At this point, it is just the eyes. I decided to keep it because I thought that might help with the placement of the mouth, and I don't know. I probably could have removed it earlier, but I ended up not having to remove the mouth since I cut it out. After the face is removed, I can wash off the face a little bit more to make sure there's no dust. And then I went in with a layer of gesso so the mouth wasn't darker than the rest of the skin tone when we paint over the gesso base. I'm using thin layers, and I mixed a little bit of Tight Mars Pale with a tiny bit of brown. I think it was burnt sienna, but I'm not positive. And then a little bit of yellow to mix the skin tone. I ended up making the face a little bit lighter than her skin tone, kind of on purpose, because if you've seen the movie, then you know that when she hasn't eaten in a while, she kind of gets a little like dull and lifeless. So I kind of tried to mimic it, since for her prom look, like, she caked on the makeup to kind of cover up how she was looking after it was wearing off, compared to the first Jennifer, since her skin is like glowy, and then this one's a little bit more pale and a little bit more lifeless, and obviously she's got a bloody mouth. So after we do a couple layers of that, I went in with my matte varnish, sprayed the face with Mr. Super Clear, and we can go in with our watercolor pencils to sketch in the face. At first, I was considering making her eyes blue, since sometimes when she transforms, her eyes will still be blue, but she'll like change them yellow for a period of time. So I wanted to do her yellow eyes, since I thought that would be a little bit more fun. Since I previously painted the mouth red, I just went in with my white paint and painted the teeth. I'm going in with another layer of red paint mixed with a tiny bit of black, so it's a little bit darker than the first layer. And I'm just painting the lips around the gums and the blood drips. I'm using a little bit more watered down red for doing a layer over the teeth, so it kind of looks like the blood is on her teeth, but not like globs of blood. After that's dry, we're on to the last layer. So I'm just going in with my black pencils and adding that liner, as well as the eyelashes, and darkening the pupil. I'm using a little bit of water to saturate the yellow a little bit more, since the pigment wasn't showing up as much as I would have liked. I didn't notice this until around the second layer, but her forearms were a little bit darker than the rest of her body, since I think they're Claudine arms. So at first I thought it was just like a Cleo who had like the little claw hands, but I'm pretty sure they're just Claudine forearms. So I just added a little bit of white just so the difference wasn't super noticeable, and her arms will be covered up with blood and gloves, so I didn't really care. After that, I did end up going with a fourth layer just to add those white highlights and add a little bit of more yellow to build the eyes and make them a little bit more glowy and more saturated. Now that we're done with the face, we can move on to her outfit. I gave her some black shoes, and we are moving on to making her satin white dress. Okay, so just wanted to show something that I'll do when working with satin fabric. So since it frays so much, you can't really hem it without, you know, basically tearing the fabric apart. So what I like to do is just use glue and seal it. You can use Fabri-Tac glue. I just feel like there's more strength. It's personal. This is Fabri-Tac. You can use like a fray check. This is Fabri-Tac. I like fray check. I just feel like it's way easier for me to stain the fabric. So these are just her gloves. So I'm painting her hands white and then making these little tubes for her. I made her the little shawl that she is wearing, and like when she's like bringing Chip to his death. Is that a spoiler? Yeah, I guess. But when she's bringing Chip to the abandoned pool, it always looked like a greenhouse because it was abandoned. So everything was overgrown. But I really like the movie. If you haven't seen it, you really should. I don't really think there's like any other movie like this. Ginger Snaps is probably the closest thing to Jennifer's Body. Like, I feel like they give off the same vibe. My friend had shown me Ginger Snaps because she thought that I would like it since I like Jennifer's Body. And of course she was right. So I really want to make like a Ginger Snaps doll, a Jennifer's Body doll, and a Needy doll as like a trio, since they're all like man-eaters, you know? So why not? I also really want to make Needy. I really wanted to make like a scary version of Jennifer. So I did that this year, and I wanted to remake it just to kind of see, because it's been a really long time since I have made Jennifer, so I wanted to see like if I've gotten better or anything. But I really like it. I like how they're turning out, and I'm really excited for a future trio of these girls. I preferably want to do, I don't know, there's just so many outfits. I do really want to do like her puffer jacket outfit, if I can find one, because I don't really want to make that. But yeah. In this specific scene that I'm referencing, she doesn't actually have her little overcoat, but I still wanted to make her it. So I just made that out of tulle and made a little circle. I made her bodice by gathering both sides of a little tube top with straps, and then I made her skirt with a slit down the middle. I hand sewed some lace. I then added a little layer of tulle underneath. I didn't notice it the first time I made the dress. I did this, but I thought it was pretty cute. It's not a super noticeable detail. You can really notice it when she's hovering above the water. Once I gather the skirt, I can attach it to the top of the dress, and then I can make sure to close that, and that's the dress base basically done. I I can add some snaps, and then we are moving on to painting. I'm just painting her hands white so it gives the effect of gloves with the little satin tubes. Once I put everything on her, I wet her hair a little bit after I boil washed it, and I'm just using a water-based gel to kind of slick her hair back and make it kind of look like it's wet. I added ribbon, a ribbon bracelet, and added ribbon around her waist. I sewed a gem to her necklace. The last step is basically just adding the blood to her dress. So I'm just using a little bit of watered down red acrylic paint mixed with a tiny bit of black, and I'm just dabbing that down her dress and on her hands. And with that, she's all finished. Thank you so much for watching. This was such a fun project. It was intimidating, but I'm really proud of how she turned out. I've got a few more spooky dolls for this season, and then we'll move on to new projects. So stay tuned for more spooky dolls.